Today we're going to talk about color grading in DaVinci Resolve. More specifically, I'll share with you my workflow for achieving a filmic or cinematic look. This is a very easy method that will work on any footage and also in the free version of DaVinci. In this video, you'll see that color grading doesn't have to be complicated or take hours and hours to get a good result. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. This video is sponsored by Frameset. Okay, so we're inside DaVinci Resolve, and before we do anything else, let's start with the project settings. In color management, I have color science set to DaVinci YRGB, and my timeline color space is set to DaVinci Wide Gamut, so that I can work in a larger color space while I'm doing my grading. And the output color space I'll set to Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, because that is what my monitor is calibrated to and how I will deliver my final video. And that's all we need to do here, so let's hit save. Next, let's start building the node tree. I'll add my first node by pressing Alt or Option S, and node number 1 is going to be my color space transform node. So I'll go into effects and look for color space transform, and then drag that onto the first node. This node is going to take my camera color space into a wider color space, that being DaVinci Wide Gamut. The clip I have here was shot on a Sony a7S III in S-Log3, so my input color space is going to be Sony S-Gamut 3 Cine, and my input gamma is going to be Sony S-Log3. And like I said, we want to work in DaVinci Wide Gamut, so our output color space is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut, and our output gamma is DaVinci Intermediate. And I'm going to name this node Camera to DaVinci Wide Gamut. Now, as you can see, the image is still not good, and that is because what we are seeing is DaVinci Wide Gamut and not Rec 709, which is what my monitor is displaying. And when you're color grading, you want to be able to see the correct color space, which is Rec 709. So let's add another node, again by pressing Alt or Option S to add a serial node, and I'll move this node towards the right because this is going to be one of the last nodes of my node tree. I'm going to drag another color space transform onto this node, and here I want to transform my DaVinci Wide Gamut image into Rec 709. So my input color space is going to be DaVinci Wide Gamut. My input gamma is going to be DaVinci Intermediate, because that's what's coming out of this node and then going into this node. Makes sense, right? My output color space is going to be Rec 709, and my output gamma 2.4. So now the image looks correct. This is what the camera was seeing when this shot was filmed. And I'll just name this node DaVinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709. Alright, let's add another node after this one, so Alt or Option S. And I'm gonna name this one Film Look, because we're going to use one of DaVinci's built-in film emulations as the backbone for this grade. And just so you know, these film emulations are also available on the free version of DaVinci, so if you haven't upgraded to the studio version yet, you'll also have access to this. The one I'm going to be using for this grade is the Fujifilm 3513 D65. And D65 is the cooler version of the three, D55 being the warmest. So I'm going to drag that on my node here. And now you can tell that the image, well, looks terrible. And the reason for that is because this film emulation LUT doesn't want Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. And remember, in this node right here, our output is Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. But we're going to fix that, so no worries. So I'm going to add another node just before our Film Look node here, and I'll drag another color space transform on there. The input here is Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, and our output color space is going to be Rec 709 again. But our output gamma is going to be Cineon Film Log. And now we have a correct image with our film look applied. We can turn these last two on and off. So this is Rec 709, and this is with our film look applied. Now let's say you want less of this film look applied to your image. So you want to decrease the effect of the film emulation LUT. What do? If you go to key and then key output and reduce the gain, you can see that there's a problem here. That's because by reducing the gain on this node, we're going back to the node before, which is set to Cineon Film Log, which is a flat color profile and not Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. So what we need to do is select both of these nodes at the end, right click and select Create Compound Node. That will group both of these nodes together. And now if we reduce the gain, we're actually going back to this node right here, which is Rec 709 Gamma 2.4, and that is what you want. And you can see with this film look applied, it's actually already looking pretty good, but we still have a bit of work to get to our final look. Now, if you're working on grading your footage and you want to get a very specific look, it can be a bit daunting to figure out what that look is going to be like. So what I like to do, and something I can really recommend to anyone, is work with reference images. And I'm going to base my look on a reference image that I found on Frameset. So if you haven't heard from Frameset before, it's basically a website where you'll find a huge collection of screen grabs from all of your favorite films, but also from commercials or music videos. And honestly, if you're looking to improve your filmmaking, whether it be color grading, storyboarding, shot listing, pitching, or just simply getting inspired by other work, I really feel that you need a platform like Frameset. I like to look through the work from some of my favorite directors or cinematographers, and Frameset just has a ton of stills available, which is really awesome. But there's also many different filters to help you find exactly what you're looking for. And if you find something you like, you can very easily tell Frameset to look for similar images, and that will get you even more inspiration or references. If you have a pro subscription, you can even save different sets. Like I, for example, have a few here based on certain specific tones that I like, and I can just keep adding on to these and refer back to them if I ever have a project that requires grading in this style. Their pro membership will give you unlimited search in 4K, and if you ever want to upgrade, I have a 10% discount for all my subscribers. All you need to do is click the link in the description and use the code STAN10 at checkout. Okay, so I've added my reference image to the gallery here, and I'm just going to refer back to it from time to time as I'm grading. And if you're wondering how to get this side-by-side view, you just need to have your reference image selected in your gallery here, and then click split screen right here. And in the drop-down menu, you select selected still images. So now that we have our reference image and we know which direction we want to go, let's add a few more nodes where we're going to shape our image. We're going to need 6 nodes to work with here, so I'm just hitting Alt or Option S 6 times. The first one is going to be our exposure node. The second one, our balance, one for our look, one for our curve, one for texture, and the last one for light. And these will all make sense as we go through them, so don't worry. I'm going to start with the curve node, and I'll just hide our reference image for now. So in the curves, I'm going to raise the shadows by pulling up this point, and then lower the highlights point here just a little bit. And then I'm going to add 2 points to this curve, one here and one here. And I'll pull this one down a little bit, and then I'll push this one up. And I'm not going to go too crazy with this here right now. So if we just have a look at the before and after, you can tell this is already making a big difference. So I'm going to leave that for now, and I can come back to it later if I need to. Next, I'm going to balance my image because I see that there's way too much red in it, and it doesn't really match the look that we're going for if I compare it to the reference image. So in color up here, I'm going to make sure my printer light hotkeys are turned on, and I'm going to be using the full printer lights to balance this image. I'll start by subtracting 1 red, and you can see that happening right here in the offset color wheel. And look at what a huge difference that already makes. All right, I'm going to subtract another red and then add 1 blue. So now we're getting a lot closer to this nighttime cool look that I'm going for here. Next, in my look node, I'm going to further fine tune this look and really dial in a few things to get closer to what I want my final shot to look like. The first thing I want to do is kind of fix the shadows here, because if I zoom into the image, you can see in the hair, for example, that it looks a bit washed out and there's a lot of blue and green in there. So I'm going to go into my log wheels here, and in my shadows, I'm going to start by subtracting blue. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to subtract some green, and then also maybe just a bit of red. Now, if we look at the before and after, you can see that that's really cleaned up the image, and especially the shadows look much, much better now. All right, now I feel like the image is a bit too magenta, so I'm going to add a bit of green in my offset until somewhere around here where we're going back to that cooler tone that I'm going for. So now if we take a look at the before and after, this has made a pretty big impact on our image. You can see how without it, the image looks a bit washed out and the skin tones are a bit off as well. But with just these few adjustments, things look way better. So right now, I think the shot is still looking a little bit too bright in my opinion. So I'm going to go in my exposure node, and I like to do a lot of my exposure changes in the HDR wheels because I think it just gives you a bit more flexibility as to what you are changing. Because if you click and hold on these circles on the left here, you can see exactly what part of the image you are going to be adjusting. And in this shot, I want to start by bringing down the darks, because again, when looking at my reference image or other similar images on Frameset, I can see that for these types of night scenes, the darkest areas of the image are really dark. They're not this kind of like washed out black. So I'm going to start by pulling down the darks right up until here. And next I'm going to bring down the shadows a bit to darken the overall image a bit more. And I think the lighter areas are also just a bit too bright, so I want to bring those down as well. And I can see by clicking the little icon here that it's these areas right here, and those are the ones that I want to target. So something around there. Now let me turn that off and on. Yep, I think that looks a lot more natural and much better. And I'm gonna show you another thing you can do to really help shape the light in your image in just a second, but let's first add two more things to really dial in that film look. The first thing is optional, but I really like it, and it's film grain. So I'll add another node in the very beginning here after our first color space transform, and in the effects I'm gonna look for film grain, and then add that to the node. I want a very subtle grain, so I'll select the 35mm preset and I'll just leave all the other settings as default. And I'll just zoom in a bit so you can better see what that does. So this is without the grain and this is with the film grain. And I'm not sure how well this is going to translate with YouTube compression and all, but it's very subtle, just taking that super clean digital edge off the image. All right, the next thing I like to do is add something called texture pop, and you can find it in the effects, and I'm just gonna add that to the first to last node here. I'm gonna change the operating mode from simple to advanced, and that just opens up a bit more controls right here. You can play around with these sliders if you want to and see which one does the trick for you, but I tend to just stick to the coarse slider. I'm gonna move that one up just a tiny bit. And now if I zoom in a bit so you can see it better and then turn this on and off, it's just giving that little bit of extra pop and texture to the image, which, well, I'm assuming is why they called it texture pop. All right, I'm gonna show you one last thing, and this is really going to dial in the light in this shot. In the final node here, our light node, I'm going to go to power windows and then select a circular power window. I'll shape that a bit to how the light is already falling, so kind of from this direction and more ovally. And now I'm going to inverse this power window by clicking right here. And I'm also going to soften the hell out of it until I get something like this. Now I'm gonna go into my color wheels and bring down the exposure. Essentially what I'm doing here is creating a vignette, but one where I have way more control and one that doesn't feel like a vignette. And if I just turn this on and off, you can see what it's doing. It's kind of bringing your attention to the character and to his face, and it's helping direct the light that's already in the shot. So let's have another look at where we started. So this is our image in S-Log, then Rec 709 with the film look applied, and then with our final grade. So there you have it. That is my color grading workflow, and probably just like a lot of you guys out there, I'm always learning new stuff, so this will most likely still develop and change over time. And I'm also happy to hear what you guys think about this workflow, or maybe even things that you might do differently. So feel free to leave that stuff down in the comments. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!